Hey guys, tonight we're starting our long, slow journey along one of the most famous, overbuilt, and underappreciated piles of rock and clay in human history, the Great Wall of China. You stand under a pale silver moon, staring at a stretch of wall that hasn't yet become great. It's low, uneven, more mud than stone. Wind carries the scent of wet earth and crushed grass, and you're not alone. Around you, the silhouettes of workers shuffle barefoot across scaffolded earthworks, their hands dusty, their backs aching. They grunt softly, but mostly they work in silence, like shadows that know they'll be here until their grandchildren take over. This isn't the postcard wall, the sleek stone ribbon you've seen in pictures. This is early, messy, hopeful wall. It squelches underfoot. It's still learning how to be tall. And spoiler alert, you probably won't survive this job. Most don't. So before you get comfortable, take a moment to like the video and subscribe, but only if you genuinely enjoy what I do here. And hey, drop a comment with where you're listening from and what time it is there. I love seeing how far this sleepy caravan travels. Now, dim the lights, maybe turn on a fan for that soft background hum, and let's ease into tonight's journey together. You trudge beside the others, all equally unsure if this wall will ever be finished. But you nod to your neighbor anyway because even fake confidence counts in a work gang. The air is thin up here. You're in a hilly province, probably part of the old Zhao territory. The year? Hard to say. Probably around the 4th century BCE. One of China's warring states has ordered this wall, not to unite, but to divide. It isn't the wall yet, just a wall. A regional attempt to keep horses and arrows on the other side of a very wide, very grumpy border. The materials are humble, dirt, tamped between wooden boards, built up into tall ridges. Sometimes stones are added in high-traffic areas, but mostly it's earth. Muddy, lumpy, trample-proof earth. One footstep at a time, you feel history start to build around you. It's not glamorous work, but it is stubborn. And in China, stubborn usually wins. At night, the workers sleep under carts or inside hollowed-out watchtowers, curling up with scratchy hemp blankets and dreams of warm broth. You overhear an older man mumbling in his sleep, something about a chicken who owes him money. Nobody questions it. Sleep debt hallucinations are a common side effect of forced labor. There are rumors, of course, that the wall isn't just for keeping enemies out. Some say it helps kings draw lines around themselves, like a toddler putting sticks around their toys. If you draw a line big enough, maybe people believe everything inside it is yours. Your supervisor rides past on a tired-looking mule. He's squinting at a wooden tablet full of tallies. Bricks moved, workers present, soup consumed. Soup is the big metric. If people stop eating, they stop working. If they stop working, the wall stops rising. You take a break and lean against a stack of dry clay bricks. One crumbles slightly under your shoulder. It's not ready yet. You pick it up and smell it, just for fun. It smells like your childhood, farm dust, sun-baked weeds, the side of a stubborn ox. The historians? They still argue whether these early wall sections were built mainly to keep invaders out or just to keep people in. Population control isn't a modern idea after all. And if people don't know where their country ends, they tend to keep walking. Nearby, a boy not older than 13 is trying to carve his name into a damp section of plaster. It reads something like, "Tian was here," but half the characters are sloppy. You wonder if future archaeologists will find this and sigh. Dinner is quiet. A stew of millet and whatever the cook found scurrying near the camp. You chew slowly, because chewing fast would imply enthusiasm, and no one here has energy for that. At dusk, a horn sounds from a far-off ridge. 2 sharp notes. Not a warning, just a signal for the supply mules to change course. The horn echoes softly through the valleys, bouncing off the half-built wall like a sleepy conversation between hills. You climb to the top of your section as the stars come out. It's not much of a view yet, mostly trenches and camps and endless piles of mud, but you can almost imagine it. Someday, this wall will stretch farther than anything ever built by humans. But for now, it's just you, the stars, and the soft sound of someone snoring into their soup below. Morning doesn't exactly arrive, it just leaks into the sky like a slow ink spill. You sit up, dust clinging to your face, and squint toward the rising light. The camp stirs quietly, with a rhythm that comes from doing the same task every day, forever. Someone sneezes. Someone else mutters about rice wine. Life resumes. Today, you're moving stones. Actual stones, not the usual sun-baked mud bricks. You groan before standing. Stone means you're working near a gate, and gates mean inspection. No one likes inspection days. They bring scribes with narrow eyes and zero patience. The stones are uneven, pulled from a riverbed half a day's walk away, carried here on ox carts that creak like old knees. You form a chain with the others, passing each slab hand to hand, fingers scraped raw by midday. Your palms develop that numb tingle that says, "Hey, congrats, you're getting calluses and nerve damage." There's a new overseer visiting today, sent by the Qin state. Word has it he wears silk boots and smells like cinnamon. You doubt both facts, but when he rides up around noon, you're surprised. He actually does smell faintly sweet, like dried ginger or maybe very clean scrolls. He dismounts slowly, surveying the sight like it personally offended him. His guards are less subtle. One jabs a pike into a stack of bricks just to see how solid they are. Another one asks if anyone's died recently. Apparently, there's a bonus for low mortality weeks. The wall's evolving. Instead of just dirt, parts are being reinforced with crushed lime and gravel. You watch as a team uses what looks like a giant wooden tamper to pound a new layer into place. Thud, 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 like a heartbeat that's had too much rice. You remember someone whispering last week that this whole thing was Emperor Qin's idea. Yes, that Qin Shi Huang, first emperor of a united China. The guy who built a terracotta army for his afterlife commute. He's decided to link all the old regional walls together into something massive. A single spine of defense across northern China. The problem is, none of the old walls actually line up. Some of them zig, others zag. You don't envy the engineers. They've been arguing about gradients for days, waving around bamboo rods and yelling about standardized cubits. Historians still debate whether Qin's version of the wall was more propaganda than protection. It certainly looked impressive, but most of it followed ridgelines where horses couldn't ride anyway. Some say it was built as much for the message as the military use. Look how big my empire is. Look what I can make poor people do. At lunch, you eat with a man named Bo. He claims he used to be a poet. You ask what happened. He gestures to the wall. Fair enough. Between bites of pickled radish, he recites a few lines he remembers. They're about a fish who dreamed of flying. You nod as if you understand. One of the younger workers collapses from heat exhaustion in the afternoon. The foreman waves for water, and 2 others carry the boy to a shaded corner. No one panics. It happens. The wall moves on. You get assigned to mortar mixing next. That means hauling buckets of sand and quicklime, trying not to breathe in the dust. It cakes your nose and makes your eyes sting, but at least you're not lifting stone. You stir with a wooden paddle as wide as your arm. The mix starts thick. then loosens. The foreman dips a finger in and tastes it. You're horrified. He nods. Perfect. Later, as twilight falls, you climb a completed tower section just to feel the breeze. The view is breathtaking. Layers of hills folding into mist, the wall snaking away like a dragon caught mid-yawn. You rest your elbows on the warm stone, still radiating heat from the sun. Below, a flute plays a tune you vaguely recognize. Something old, something from your grandmother's village. You close your eyes. For a moment, you're not a laborer. You're just a person. A soul balanced on top of the longest project in human history. And then someone yells that the latrine trench has overflowed. So, back to reality. The next morning greets you not with birdsong, but with a mule braying, like it just discovered heartbreak. You roll over onto a stone that wasn't there last night, and immediately regret being alive. By the time you're up and chewing your rice porridge, still inexplicably crunchy, you overhear a whisper rippling through the camp like wind through dry grass. Someone tried to run. Not very far, of course. Just over the nearest hill before realizing that food, water, and the illusion of safety were all still back this side of the wall. They returned by sunrise, shoulders low, stomach lower. Deserters don't usually last long. Some are tied to posts for a day as punishment. Others are demoted from wall duty to dung collection. Worse for your pride than your nose. You wonder how many had once been scholars, farmers, even minor nobles who said the wrong thing during the wrong dynasty. Everyone's equal here, equally expendable. Your job today? Rammed earth, back to basics. The labor is mindless, almost meditative, like you're tamping down your own emotions along with the soil. You work in pairs. One of you shovels the mixture into a wooden frame, the other pounds it flat. Switch. Repeat. Occasionally, the foreman mumbles, 8 inches deep, or we start over. This section of the wall doesn't have any stone, just mud, straw, lime, and sweat. Lots of sweat. Historians estimate some early wall stretches, especially under the Qin, used materials that barely lasted a century unless constantly repaired. But even that temporary barrier scared off enough northern tribes to justify the effort. Maybe. Bo the poet works beside you today. He's decided to write a song about the tamper tool. It has 5 verses and is, in your opinion, not entirely necessary. Still, it passes the time. His chorus is catchy. Thump it down, make it flat. Emperor says we must do that. He sings off key. You hum along anyway. During your midday break, you wander near the supply tent and spot something strange. Paper covered in scribbled diagrams. A group of engineers is debating, fingers flailing like panicked pigeons. They're arguing over angles again. One insists the ramparts must curve to match the terrain. Another argues straight lines are faster. A third just wants lunch. There's a term they keep repeating: modular fortifications. Apparently, they're trying to standardize the build process, so each section of the wall looks and functions the same. Problem is, no one remembered to standardize the terrain. The hills do what they want. So do the engineers. You return to your post, arms sore, legs heavier than your boots. The wall creeps forward like an elderly snake. You pause to drink water from a gourd that tastes vaguely of cabbage. It's warm. Everything is warm. A strange man walks by around mid-afternoon, wearing a blue robe with gold trim. He's not military, not labor, not engineering. He might be an official, though he carries no seal. Rumor spreads, tax inspector, or maybe a feng shui consultant. Someone mutters something about dragon lines. You make a note not to ask. Historians still debate whether spiritual geomancy truly influenced the wall's design. Some records suggest sections were aligned not only for defense, but also to harmonize with sacred mountains and cosmic energy. Others say the builders were too busy not dying to worry about qi flow. A few moments before sunset, you catch sight of something rare. A caravan. Traders. They're not here for long, just passing by with camels, spices, copper trinkets. One tosses you a fig as he goes. It's overripe and tastes like heaven. You chew slowly, savoring the gift, trying not to cry. As darkness falls, someone lights a torch atop the nearest tower. Then another, further down the line. A glowing path of orange embers stretching into the horizon. This system, beacons for communication, is said to be faster than a messenger horse. Signal fires for danger, sometimes false alarms. Once, someone burned a sheep too close to a signal post and triggered a panic. You lie down on your mat, back aching, fig skin still stuck in your teeth. The stars above are sharp and unblinking. Somewhere behind you, someone snores like a collapsing tent. Somewhere ahead, the wall waits for tomorrow. And tomorrow always comes. By now, your body wakes before your mind does. Muscles creak into motion like rusty hinges, and your eyes open just in time to watch a rat skitter across someone's foot. No one flinches. At this point, the rats are like co-workers. Unhygienic, opportunistic co-workers who sometimes eat your rice. This morning, the assignment shifts. You're hauling bricks. Actual bricks. No more tamping mud. These are fired clay. Uniform, heavy, and strangely satisfying to stack. There's something comforting about the dull thud as one brick meets another, even if the sound is your spine slowly disintegrating. These bricks mark a change in dynasty. You're under the Ming now, and the wall is entering its most iconic form. Stone-faced, tall, formidable. The Ming emperors, especially after the trauma of the Mongol invasion, decided the old rammed earth sections weren't cutting it. They wanted fortresses, not suggestions. You join a relay line passing bricks up a slope. Each man steps, passes, breathes. Step, pass, breathe. You could do it in your sleep, and sometimes you think you do. There's a rhythm to it, like a lullaby written by a sadistic architect. Somewhere ahead, a man loses his grip. A brick drops. It tumbles, hits a toe, and the victim curses with the poetic fury of a playwright. His toe is probably broken, but he insists it's fine. Just a little flatter than before, he jokes. Laughter spreads, quickly swallowed by fatigue. The foreman offers you a break, but only if you carry mortar on the way. You agree. The mortar smells like vinegar and defeat. You wonder what's in it. Ash? Lime? Disappointment? Likely all three. You sneak a glance down the wall, where two small towers rise like watchful eyes. Guards pace the top, scanning the northern horizon. It's quiet today. No smoke, no riders. Still, they watch. They always watch. Over lunch, which is rice again, with a surprise sliver of garlic, you listen to Bo tell a story about General Qin Shi Huang. Apparently, he redesigned the wall to improve troop mobility, added staircases, better lighting, more organized garrisons. His troops, mostly conscripted farmers, were trained with bamboo poles before they got swords. Historians admire his strategies, but debate whether his wall designs were adopted consistently across all provinces. Bo's version of the story is more dramatic. He claims Qi rode along the entire wall in a golden cart, correcting each brick with a bamboo stick. You're pretty sure that part's made up, but it's hard to argue with someone chewing garlic. That enthusiastically. In the afternoon, you meet someone new. She's a widow from a nearby village, sent to the worksite to pay off her late husband's tax debt. Women aren't common here, but not unheard of. Especially during heavy build seasons, anyone with 2 arms becomes valuable. She lays mortar like she's been doing it for years and says nothing the entire time. By dusk, your arms throb like you've wrestled a yak. You take a moment atop a half-finished tower, staring out over the plains. The wind pulls at your tunic and whispers nonsense in your ear. Or maybe that's Bo again. Far below, you spot a fox picking through camp scraps. It's bold, unafraid. You wonder how many walls it's seen rise and fall. The fires light up again, beacons dancing across the hills. They feel less like warnings now, more like lullabies. Orange dots in the dark. Someone hums that tamper song again, even though no one's tamping tonight. It sticks in your brain like mortar under your fingernails. You lie down on a mat that feels just slightly softer than gravel. Tomorrow, there will be more bricks. The day after, perhaps stone blocks. Maybe you'll graduate to scaffolding duty, or back to digging trenches. No one finishes the wall. Not really. But you add your pieces, and that's enough. Morning finds you cradling your hands like relics. Every joint clicks. Every fingertip is caked with yesterday. But there's no real sense of surprise anymore. This is simply what waking feels like now. The foreman has a new task for you today. Stone cutting. You blink twice, unsure if it's a punishment or a promotion. Either way, someone hands you a bronze chisel and a wooden mallet, and you're directed toward the quarry. It's not far, just a short, uphill trudge through a trail that smells like pine needles and damp earth. The stones, massive and half-born from the mountain, sit in silence, waiting to become wall. You're told to carve them down for uniformity. Like tofu cubes, someone says, laughing. But these stones are no tofu. They fight back with every swing. Dust settles in your nostrils, grits between your teeth. It's like chewing the mountain itself. Someone beside you, an older man with gray at his temples, works with fluidity that you admire. He chips like he's composing a quiet song, each knock part of a rhythm only he can hear. The wall teaches you patience, he says without looking up, and how to hate your own elbows. Your section of wall is miles away from the capital, which means few visits from the high officials or engineers. But once in a while, someone important does arrive. Today, word spreads that an imperial inspector is en route. Everyone washes their faces in shallow bowls, smooths their tunics, and pretends not to limp. The inspector finally arrives. A slender man on a tall horse, his robes too clean for this province. He doesn't speak directly to the workers, only nods as his assistant jots something into a scroll. You hear whispers that he's part of the Ministry of Works, here to assess brick efficiency. He stays for 10 minutes, then leaves. Historians still argue whether those inspections ever changed anything, Bo mutters, while you return to the quarry. Some say they were just rituals, to remind us who's boss. You nod, mostly because your arms are too tired for conversation. Lunch is millet porridge with a surprise, pickled turnip. Someone's cousin sent it from the village. It's sour, crunchy, and tastes like someone dared a vegetable to offend your tongue. Still, it's gone in minutes. The sun is brutal today, glaring off pale stone until your eyes feel scorched. You start to understand why some laborers wear straw hats, even when they obstruct your view. shade is sacred. A few men whisper about the Mongols again. No sightings in weeks, one says. Maybe they've finally settled down. You doubt it. The wall isn't just about current threats. It's about memory, about fear calcified into bricks. Mid-afternoon, you're reassigned again. This time, you'll help install caltrop fields below one of the wall's slopes. Clusters of buried spikes designed to slow down invaders. You didn't even know that was a thing. But here you are, stabbing metal into earth. The spikes are crude but effective. Some are shaped like stars, others like bent claws. Won't do much against horses, someone admits, but they'll make sure the infantry limps. You wonder what it says about a civilization that builds beauty with one hand and booby traps with the other. As dusk settles in, you head back up to your camp. A few workers have gathered to tell stories, legends passed down like folk remedies. Tonight, it's about a ghost that haunts the wall near Jiayuguan Pass. A woman who died building the wall appears during storms, they say, crying for her lost son. You ask if she's ever been seen this far east. Bo shakes his head. Our ghosts are lazier, he says. They stay put. Still, you glance over your shoulder on the way to your mat. Just in case. The wind tonight carries sand from the north. It creeps into your bedding, your nose, your dreams. But the wall doesn't sleep. Somewhere, someone else is hauling, stacking, shaping. A line of laborers stretching through time. Tomorrow, you'll wake again to the mountain's rhythm. For now, you sleep like stone. The wind woke you before the sun this time. It whistles through the unfinished wall like a bamboo flute, low and haunting, as if the bricks themselves are trying to hum a lullaby. You sit up, brush the sand from your face, and breathe in air that tastes like dust and old firewood. You're sent to work the early shift on the rammed earth crew, a team responsible for compacting layers of soil into tight, durable wall segments. At first, you think it sounds easy. Then you meet the tamper. The tamper is a blunt log, thick as your thigh and twice as heavy, which you and 3 others must lift and slam over and over again to pack the dirt into wooden molds. Lift, drop, grunt. Lift, drop, grunt. That's your rhythm now. Over and over. It turns out, this part of the wall isn't made of bricks at all. At least not yet. Rammed earth has been used for centuries, long before the bricks arrived. It's faster, and it uses local soil. But the process is brutal. You wonder how many centuries of patience are already buried inside this mud. Bo's voice floats over the din. You know they say parts of the Qin wall were built this way too, he says, wiping sweat from his eyebrows. Emperor Qin didn't care if it lasted forever. He just wanted it done before he died. Historians still argue whether Qin Shi Huang's original wall was ever intended to be permanent. Some claim it was more of a showpiece, a statement to the heavens that China knew where it ended. Others believe it was a logistical gamble meant to unify a fractured land. Either way, it's mostly gone now, melted back into the hills. By mid-morning, your muscles burn like firewood left too close to the coals. You switch jobs briefly, now hauling baskets of soil up from the pit using a makeshift pulley. The rope bites into your palms, but at least you're moving. There's a strange sense of intimacy with the dirt. You begin to notice its subtleties, the stickiness of clay, the bitterness of loess, the whisper of ancient roots tangled like dried noodles. The foreman even praises your section. Flat as rice paper, he mutters. That counts as a compliment. During your midday break, someone shares a strange tale. They used to mix sticky rice water into the earth, says Lynn, who used to be a cook. Makes it stronger, more waterproof. You blink. Sticky rice? In dirt? Swear on my ancestors, he says. The glutinous starch binds the soil like magic. You file that one away under things that shouldn't work, but probably did. Later, you catch a glimpse of the terrain beyond the wall. Steep ravines, jagged cliffs, and a dry riverbed that snakes like a forgotten vein. That's where the guards are headed today, on patrol. You've never done guard duty. Too valuable on the construction crew, they say. But you imagine standing there, scanning the emptiness, listening for hooves. The guards are young, mostly conscripts like you, but with sharper haircuts and slightly better boots. One of them brags about having seen real Mongol scouts once. Just specks on a hill, he admits, but real. You wonder if the wall ever made them pause, if it made them change direction, or laugh. The afternoon passes with more pounding, lifting, tamping. By now, your arms move out of habit, as if they belong to someone else. Someone strong and dependable, and deeply in need of a nap. Toward sunset, the crew shifts again. This time, you help with drainage, digging trenches along the base of the wall to keep rain from washing it away. You didn't expect drainage to be part of military defense, but it is. Wall's no good if it melts, says a foreman with teeth like old dice. It's like cake, tall and proud one moment, collapsed and soggy the next. You nod. It's a cursed cake, but it's your cake now. That night, you're too tired to sit with the others. The stories swirl around you like mist. Ghosts in the western mountains, a talking ox near the Yellow River, a soldier who turned into a tree after sleeping under a cursed peach blossom. You fall asleep before the punchline, and the wall, as always, keeps growing. One grain of sand at a time, pressed by hands like yours. By now, you've figured out the rhythm of the wall, the strange, thudding symphony of feet and ropes and tamps and voices. You wake not by the sun, but by the rustle of boots outside your tent, by the distant clang of ladles against soup pots. Today is a transport day. You're assigned to the donkey line, a caravan of shaggy, suspicious-eyed beasts ferrying bricks up a steep hill. It's not the most glorious job, but it beats dirt tamping, or so you think. The donkeys are stubborn. One, in particular, seems to hate you on sight. You name him Wu the Betrayer. He chews through his rope, walks sideways, and drops his load exactly once per hour, as if on schedule. Still, it gives you time to think. You watch the bricklayers up top, steady as water, placing the fired stones in quiet rows. They tap each one into place with wooden mallets, like they're tucking in children. It's oddly soothing. Bricks weren't always part of the plan. You learn. In the early dynasties, the wall was mostly tamped earth and wood, but bricks became more common during the Ming Dynasty, centuries after Qin's rule. They last longer, resist weather, and look impressive, even romantic, in a grim sort of way. There's a saying, gold bricks for the emperor, mud for the peasants. And yet, here you are, surrounded by dusty gray bricks and napping donkeys, all building something no emperor will ever see finished. You overhear an older worker mumble about how they used human hair and mortar once to add tensile strength. Back when superstition was strategy, he says, spitting into the dust. Historians still argue whether this was true or just a myth told to scare newcomers into not shedding too much on the job. By midday, The sun glints off the stacked bricks like dull silver coins. You squint and think about how many it would take to finish the entire wall. Millions? Billions? It's dizzying. You focus instead on tying Wu's new harness, twice as tight. You pass a carving in one of the bricks. It's a name, faintly etched. Yang. Someone who came before you, maybe 100 years ago, maybe last week. Bricklayers sometimes signed their work, even if no one would see it. On a break, you ask Bo about it. Sometimes they carved prayers, he says, for strength or luck or forgiveness. Forgiveness, you ask? He shrugs. Some didn't want to be here, not really. You nod. You get it. Some were conscripted. Others were prisoners. A few were just poor farmers who traded hunger for work. The wall was not picky about its builders. It ate up all kinds. Later, a supervisor praises your efficiency. You think it might be sarcasm. Wu has staged 2 sit-ins in a small rebellion, but he claps your shoulder and tells you to try laying a row of bricks yourself. The mortar is cold and gritty between your fingers. You scoop it, spread it, place the brick, and tap it gently. Then again, and again. You fall into a strange, slow trance. Your breath syncs with the rhythm. You think of future travelers walking across this path, of feet landing on your row, maybe even children, hundreds of years from now, running along it and laughing. They'll never know your name, but they'll feel your brick beneath them. One of the guards walks by and mutters, "Still holding up, Wall?" as if it were an old friend. You like that. As dusk rolls in, a faint mist curls around the base of the wall. It smells of pine and distant fires. Somewhere down the slope, a flute begins to play. Slow, off-key, beautiful in its imperfection. You feed Wu the betrayer a bruised apple and watch him chew with deliberate smugness. Despite yourself, you smile. Maybe he's earned it. You lie back against the stack of bricks, arms aching, back warm from the day's sun, and close your eyes. You're just one pair of hands in a 2,000-year relay. But for today, that's enough. Morning comes with a cooler breeze and a different assignment. Today, you're being moved east to a crumbling section of the wall that hugs a slope like a fraying ribbon. It's older here, much older, and no one's sure which dynasty built this stretch. Some say it's Han. Others claim it's a Qin, leftover. Historians still debate it, pointing to buried pottery shards and the spacing of beacon towers. But to you, it just feels haunted. The stones here are darkened with age, some chipped like ancient teeth, others swallowed by tufts of moss. You're not alone. A small team is gathered for this patch, and they're different, quieter, older, more reverent. There's a mason named Li who carries a little brush to dust off every stone before setting it. Each one, he says softly, has already lived a life. You climb up narrow stairs, some carved directly into the mountain, others wedged together from different centuries. The wall was never one unbroken snake. It was stitched from different pieces across dynasties and emperors, like a patchwork coat no tailor ever finished. This section has holes, missing stones, collapsed parapets. A fall here wouldn't be dramatic, just ein. Null. You tread carefully. The silence is deeper. Wind whistles through the gaps with a sort of bored persistence. Your task, reinforcement. You'll be filling gaps with rubble, mortar, and oddly, rice. Yes, rice. Sticky rice mortar, used famously during the Ming Dynasty, was stronger than lime alone. Archaeologists found that glutinous rice, when mixed with lime and water, bound bricks like some kind of supernatural porridge. Science confirms it. The starch proteins chemically bond in a way that strengthens the structure. The smell of warm rice as it's prepared for mortar mixing is oddly comforting, like breakfast. You joke to one of the workers, "Too bad we can't eat the leftovers." He laughs and says, "Eat your wall, sleep in your wall, die in your wall. That's the circle." Comforting. You carry pails up the slope. Each step groans in your calves, but the view grows more dramatic. Below, the terrain sprawls, rugged, vast, unknowable. This wall, this strange spine of stone, carves a stubborn path through it all. You pass a beacon tower, just a squat ruin now, the top missing, the wood long vanished. During the Han Dynasty, soldiers would light smoke signals here to warn of approaching enemies. One puff meant a few riders. 5 meant trouble. And if there was a string of fires across the hills, you knew someone had made a very bad decision. You imagine being that soldier, alone in a tower, watching the horizon, one hand on a smoldering torch, the other on your stomach, wondering if you should have had less barley wine at lunch. A man nearby is chanting softly as he lays bricks. You ask him about it. "Old poem," he says, "to keep the hands steady." You like that. You borrow the rhythm. It helps with your footing. Midway through the day, a chunk of wall gives way. It's not dramatic, just a low crumble and a startled yelp. A few bricks skitter downhill, bouncing like lazy dice. No one's hurt. But for a moment, everyone freezes. You feel it, the weight of years, of erosion, of human effort, slowly being unstitched by time. You all work slower after that, more deliberate, more respectful. At lunch, you sit near Lee and ask why he works here when he could be laying bricks in the newer section. He tells you this stretch is like a forgotten grandparent. It may not stand tall, but it remembers more. You nod, chewing quietly on your flatbread and salted radish. You wonder what the wall remembers of you. Maybe nothing. Maybe just the pressure of your boots. The afternoon fades into that gold dust light again. You notice the wall seems to glow at this hour, like it's lit from within. You step back and admire your work. Patched gaps, cleaner lines, fewer shadows. It's not beautiful, exactly, but it feels steady. You run your fingers along a newly repaired edge. It's not seamless. It never is, but it's holding. The wind picks up. From this height, you can hear sounds far away. Animal calls, a hammer tapping, someone singing off-key. Life scattered across the mountains. As you gather your tools and begin the descent, you pause at the beacon tower one last time. You whisper, "All quiet," just to no one in particular. And for a moment, it really is. The next morning, you wake to the smell of something vaguely burnt and vaguely edible. Breakfast is congee. Rice boiled until it forgets it was ever rice, with a few slices of preserved turnip. You're grateful for it, mostly because it's hot and gives your hands something to do in the cold mountain air. Today, you're headed to a different stretch, a more recent addition to the Great Wall. This one's Ming Dynasty, unmistakably so. The bricks are uniform, gray-blue, tightly packed, and much more rectangular than the rough stones of yesterday. You can't help but admire how neat it all looks, like a bureaucrat got their hands on masonry and insisted it follow the rules. That's the Ming for you. Meticulous, organized, a little paranoid. They rebuilt hundreds of miles of the wall, worried about Mongol incursions and internal rebellions. As you walk, the path widens. It's easier going, less like a mountain trail and more like a stone causeway. You imagine processions here, soldiers in neat rows, banners fluttering, perhaps a bored commander wondering if there will ever actually be an invasion. Spoiler, there usually was. The Ming-era guard towers appear like clockwork. Every few hundred meters, a square two-story structure with narrow windows and even narrower staircases. You climb into one. The floorboards creak. Pigeons have made it their kingdom now. Still, the view is something else. From here, you can see just how serpentine the wall is. It doesn't go in a straight line. It wriggles and writhes, ducking behind hills, crawling over ridges, like it's afraid to be caught. A fellow worker leans next to you, chewing on a piece of dried plum. They say it stretches like the dragon's spine, he murmurs. But dragons don't protect, they just sleep. You store that one for later. Work today involves brick relaying. Some sections have sagged, their weight giving in to centuries of rain, frost, and the occasional enthusiastic goat. You form a line with the others, one of those human chains that looks inefficient, but somehow always works. Brick by brick, handed down like sacred offerings. You handle the bricks differently now. Yesterday's old stones were reverent and worn. These are newer, but sharper, less forgiving on the fingers. You joke that the Ming must have invented sandpaper. Someone snorts. As you pass a brick along, you notice something carved into the side. A tiny symbol, almost worn away. A family name, maybe. Some workers inscribed their identities into the wall, not as ego, but as a kind of proof. I was here. I helped hold the sky up. Historians still debate the purpose of these carvings. Were they official marks, secret prayers, or just one guy bored on brick duty? You trace the shape with your thumb. It's nearly erased, but not quite. Like the person who made it is still lingering. Lunch is under the shade of a poplar tree growing dangerously close to the edge. You joke that its roots are probably Ming too. The team shares flatbread, more congee, and what might be a boiled egg, or might not. You decide not to look too closely. A newer worker, young and wide-eyed, asks a question that's been on your mind too. Why so big? Why make it this long? An older mason shrugs. Because walls don't just keep people out, they keep stories in. Later in the afternoon, a small inspection crew arrives. They're scholars, historians probably, with dusty robes and nervous clipboards. One of them interviews a worker, scribbling frantically. You catch a few phrases. Fortification logistics, dynastic symbolism, material decay rate, all very academic. One of the scholars stops by you. He asks what it feels like to work on the wall. You shrug, like trying to catch fog with bricks. He nods seriously, writes that down, and wanders off. You're not sure what that meant, but it sounds profound. Back to work. You're tasked with helping repair the crenellations, the up and down bits at the top, which you now know are called merlins and crenelles. That's your quirky trivia for the day. And here, you thought they were just battlements. These gaps gave archers room to shoot and duck, but now they mostly give you a nice breeze and a good place to dangle your legs and think about lunch. You clean the mortar joints with a stiff bristle brush, careful not to chip the stone. The sun begins its slow descent, casting long shadows that make the wall look infinite. You've walked a mere kilometer or two, but it feels like you've traveled dynasties. As you pack up for the evening, your eyes catch the flicker of something high up the next hill. Just a shepherd's fire, probably. But for a moment, you imagine the signal towers lighting one by one, a trail of flame across the mountains, like a whispered warning passed from age to age. You return to camp sore, dusty, and weirdly happy. Someone's playing a flute. Someone else is snoring in a hammock strung between two scaffolds. You sit by the fire, stretch your legs, and look up. The stars are sharp tonight, prickling the sky. And behind you, the wall curls into the dark like a question no one's finished asking. The next day begins with wind. Not the gentle kind that rustles leaves and whispers through bamboo, but a full-throated mountain gust that knocks your hat clean off and nearly sends your breakfast rolling down a ravine. You manage to catch both. Barely. You're learning that the Great Wall doesn't just span centuries, it spans climates. Today's section weaves along a particularly high ridge, and up here the air is colder, thinner, and just a little bit meaner. Still, the view is enough to make you forget the numbness in your toes. You start hiking again, boots scraping on stone, breath fogging in the morning chill. This part of the wall has been restored in patches, and it's not always easy to tell which bricks are original and which are 20th century replacements. But every curve, every stair, carries a rhythm you're beginning to recognize. The wall doesn't just go somewhere, it meanders like it's thinking out loud. Today's work? Clearing debris from one of the watchtowers that's been partially collapsed by time, weather, and, according to one of the older workers, a wandering yak with attitude. You've never seen a yak, but judging by the damage, you're willing to believe it. The tower is a mess. Rubble everywhere. Stones that once formed an elegant parapet now sit in a tangled heap, like someone tried to play Jenga blindfolded. You grab a shovel and begin the slow, satisfying process of uncovering history, one rock at a time. As you clear away loose stones, you find something unexpected wedged between two bricks, a fragment of paper, nearly turned to dust. You call over a supervisor, who carefully extracts it using tweezers and reverence. A faded brushstroke suggests it might have been part of a soldier's journal, or maybe a love letter, forgotten in the quiet between invasions. Historians still argue whether documents like these were common or extremely rare. The dry climate in parts of northern China means some have survived, tantalizing glimpses into lives lived under armor and empire. You wonder what the author might have written. Dear Leon, the soup is still terrible, but I dream of your dumplings. Probably something more poetic. Work slows in the afternoon as the wind grows stronger. It whistles through the cracks like a choir of ghosts, each one telling you to stop using that chisel so loudly. You move to another tower, this one still standing tall. Inside, the air is cooler, darker. Dust motes float in the slanted sunlight like ancient glitter. You run your fingers along the walls and notice faint scratches. Tally marks? A game? Or maybe a way for soldiers to count the days they spent waiting for an attack that never came. Someone hands you a bundle of reeds soaked in water. New mortar filler, they explain. You mix it with clay, stomp it into shape with your heels, and use it to seal the gaps between stones. It's sticky, satisfying work, like icing a very, very angry cake. Midday brings a treat, sweet potato soup, served in a battered metal bowl. It's oddly comforting, even if it smells a bit like wet socks. One of the masons, a man with a scar that looks suspiciously like a map of Korea, tells a story about how entire families would migrate to wall towns, offering services from cooking to laundry to very suspicious massage therapy. You raise an eyebrow. He winks. The wall was more than a barrier. It was a living ecosystem, a belt of civilization winding through wildness. Markets sprang up near major gates. Some enterprising folks even turned their watchtowers into pop-up inns. "Rent a roof, watch a Mongol," he jokes. Historians still puzzle over just how many people lived along the wall at any given time. Estimates range wildly, from tens of thousands to over 1 million, depending on the century, the dynasty, and the optimism of your data. Later in the afternoon, a local guide stops by with a donkey and a basket of persimmons. You buy one and sit on the edge of the parapet, legs dangling, biting into its sticky sweetness while the wall hums under you with wind and footsteps and centuries. You watch birds dip and rise along the thermals, their wings outstretched like tiny kites. Somewhere far below, a river glints in the sun. You imagine caravans passing there centuries ago. Silk traders, spice dealers, musicians with stories from the West. They'd have looked up and seen you, or someone like you, a speck on the wall of an empire, watching the world unfold beneath their boots. By now, the wall feels less like a structure and more like a mood. Some parts whisper, others creak, and some sections just grunt and tell you to keep moving. Evening comes fast. The sunset slices across the ridgeline, spilling golden light over the stones until they glow like warm embers. You help stack tools, roll tarps over the materials, and pass around the last thermos of hot tea. At dinner, a storyteller takes center stage around the fire. He claims to be descended from the man who invented the wall's original blueprint. You're skeptical, especially when he describes the plans being drawn with phoenix feather ink on dragonhide parchment. But he's funny, and the soup's hot, so you let it go. Tonight you sleep in the watchtower. The wind still whispers, but it's gentler now, like the wall is tucking you in. You lie down, eyes tracing the beams above. They're etched with soot and time. Someone once stood watch here. Maybe they saw a Mongol rider. Maybe they saw nothing. Maybe they, too, whispered into the dark. What are we even building? And the stones, as always, said nothing. Dawn breaks with a dull gray sky and the muffled bleating of a goat somewhere below. You sit up slowly, wrapped in a scratchy wool blanket, still groggy from dreaming about bricks that argued with you. One said you were stacking them wrong. Another asked for a raise. You step outside the watchtower and stretch, your joints cracking in protest. The wall this morning feels more somber, less grand monument, more tired spine of an old dragon. Clouds drag their bellies across the peaks, and the wind is taking the day off. Today's journey takes you into a stretch of the wall few tourists ever see. It's crumbling in places, swallowed by thorny brush and trees that never got the memo about staying off imperial defenses. This section, built during the Northern Qin Dynasty, is one of the oldest and roughest. The Qi ruled in the 6th century CE, during a time when China was fragmented into squabbling kingdoms. Their version of the wall was less about grandeur and more about immediate survival. Slapped together quickly, often with tamped earth and chopped reeds, it was a desperate line drawn in the sand, or rather, the clay. You walk carefully along what remains of the path. Your boots sink slightly with each step, and the earth shifts like it's reconsidering your presence. Every now and then, you spot signs of earlier repairs. Bricks from the Ming period mixed with much older mudstone. It's a palimpsest of panic, pride, and practicality. Here, the wall doesn't look like a barrier. It looks like a bruised memory, a suggestion of structure rather than a fortress. But don't let that fool you. This section once saw some of the fiercest fighting. Back then, nomadic tribes, like the Ruran and later the Guk Turks, pressed hard against the borders. Raids were common, swift, and sometimes devastating. The wall wasn't just a wall, it was a war zone, a neighborhood, and a test of how long a civilization could hold its breath. You stop to examine the base of one of the old towers. It's slumped at an angle, like it's trying to lie down for a nap. Inside, there's little left. Just a few broken tools, a half-buried fire pit, and what might be a fossilized dumpling. You don't touch it. Too many variables. Historians still argue whether the northern cheese walls were truly effective. Some say they delayed invasions long enough for the empire to regroup. Others claim they were more of a psychological comfort blanket, something to point to and say, "Look, we're doing something," even as arrows flew overhead. One thing's certain: thousands died building it. Forced labor was the standard, with soldiers, peasants, and even convicts pressed into service. The work was punishing. Tools were primitive. Meals were basic, mostly millet porridge and dried vegetables. If you were lucky, there was salt. If you were very lucky, you didn't eat clay by mistake. You crouch down near a section where the wall's layers are visible. The oldest part is a packed earth core, still surprisingly solid. Above that, a thin layer of sun-dried bricks, now eroded into flaky scales. It reminds you of an old book, each page a dynasty, each crack a lost story. Mid-morning brings a moment of weird joy. You stumble across an ancient drainage system. Yes, an actual gutter excites you now. It's lined with stones and still channels water like it was installed yesterday. The fact that someone thought about rain runoff 1,400 years ago while fleeing bandits is oddly touching. As you rest beside it, sipping tea from your thermos, a young archaeologist joins you. She's thrilled to be here, even if she's been stung by 2 bees and insulted by a very unfriendly squirrel. She tells you about strange artifacts found in this region: bronze combs, ceramic dice, even a bone flute carved with swirling patterns. Maybe music was their Netflix, she jokes, miming a flute solo. You chuckle, then cough. She's terrible at miming. Later, you pass a crumbling stretch where vines hang like forgotten banners. In one place, someone scratched graffiti into a stone. A name, a date, and what might be a crude drawing of a chicken. Art or boredom? Hard to say. But it makes the past feel close, like someone just stepped away to chase that chicken. You pause at a narrow ridge. The wall snakes ahead, dipping and rising like a roller coaster built by monks. You grip the side stones and make your way slowly, one cautious step after another, until you reach a flattened lookout point. The view is ridiculous. Mountains unroll in every direction. Mist curls in the valleys. You spot the outline of another ruined tower in the distance, barely visible through the haze. For a second, you feel like part of something ancient and unshakable. Then, a bird poops on your shoulder. You sigh. The wall takes, but it also gives. Evening descends as you pitch your tent beside a low section near a stream. A pair of elderly locals drop by with a kettle and a stack of scallion pancakes. They used to herd goats here, they say, long before it became a conservation zone. They remember children playing hide and seek in the watchtowers. One of them swears she once saw a Mongol ghost stealing turnips. You smile and sip their tea, letting the stories wash over you. The Great Wall has always been made of more than bricks. It's layered with laughter, fear, soup, goats, and maybe ghosts with strong opinions on root vegetables. As the stars appear, just a few at first, then a slow flood of them, you lie back against your pack. The wall stretches beside you, not just a line on the land, but a living breath of history exhaling through the hills. You close your eyes. Morning returns, this time with a gold-tinted sky and a slight breeze that smells like pine needles and stone dust. You unzip your tent to find a goat staring at you, chewing thoughtfully. You stare back. The goat blinks first. Victory. You're deeper into the mountains now, where the wall seems less interested in defense and more interested in drama. It zigzags up cliffs like a toddler drawing with too much enthusiasm. This stretch belongs to the Tang Dynasty, arguably one of China's golden ages. And even here, out in the wild, you can feel their flair for elegance peeking through. The Tang weren't big on expanding the wall, not in the same way their predecessors were. Instead, they maintained and restored what already existed. Their power didn't rely on endless barriers. It came from diplomacy, trade, and the occasional well-timed army. Still, you spot signs of their handiwork. Watchtowers here are better constructed, square and squat, with neatly hewn stone bases. There's a sense of order, even artistry. You find a tile carved with lotus petals, and a few meters away, a fragment of a ceramic cup with a faint blue glaze. Either a soldier had good taste, or someone dropped their picnic. Historians still argue whether the Tang truly needed the wall. Their influence stretched deep into Central Asia, thanks to the Silk Roads. Through these routes came spices, paper, precious stones, and ideas. The wall wasn't just a barrier. It was part of a network, a breath between empires, a long pause in the middle of a sentence about civilization. You hike past an old barracks site. Only the foundation stones remain, and one lonely post hole, which you stub your toe on because history has a sense of humor. Nearby, the trail is littered with broken roof tiles, red clay fading to pink under the sun. You wonder if they ever had a proper rainy season here, or if the tiles were mostly for show. The Tang era was known for poetry, fashion, and bureaucracy so elaborate it required its own clerical caste. You picture some poor soldier out here, guarding against phantom raids, writing calligraphy under moonlight just to pass the time, his ink freezing in winter, his poems lost to the wind. As you sit on a fallen slab for breakfast, a group of hikers wanders by. Local history buffs, armed with walking sticks and gossip. One of them tells you a theory that Tang soldiers sometimes trained using choreographed routines to music, like military tai chi, or really intense line dancing. No one's found evidence, but a single Tang mural shows soldiers in oddly rhythmic poses. The scholar's not convinced. You, however, now can't unsee it. Further along, the wall dips into a dense pine forest. The trees hush your footsteps. You move slower, partly for the silence, partly because the trail is now more root than stone. This section feels forgotten, not ruined, just sleeping. Then you find it, a narrow passage between trees where the wall has sunk into the earth like it's giving up. The bricks are moss-covered, and one has what appears to be an ancient handprint pressed into its surface. Could be from a builder. Could be from a prankster. Either way, you high-five it and move on. You think about the lives lived here, the garrison cooks who foraged for mushrooms, the patrol captains who memorized every foxhole, the lovers who passed secret notes under nightfall. Some of those stories might still linger in the walls, compressed into the mortar, waiting to be imagined. Eventually, you reach a small shrine built into a recess of the wall. It's humble: 3 stones, an offering bowl, and a wooden plaque with faded characters. The plaque reads something about protection, good harvests, and not getting eaten by wolves. You add a coin and a silent wish, not for luck, but for softer boots. Lunch is a peach and some trail bread, eaten beside an old mile marker. The Tang, ever organized, placed these every so often along key routes. This one bears the dynasty's seal and a note about nearby wells. You find one a few minutes later, dry now, but cleanly cut, with moss clinging to the sides like velvet. Historians debate how many Tang troops were truly stationed along the wall at any given time. Estimates range wildly. Some say only a skeleton crew remained during peacetime, relying on smoke signals and pigeon posts to summon reinforcements. Others argue the garrisons were small towns unto themselves, bustling outposts full of merchants, healers, and unlicensed poets. You hike on, thinking of all the things the wall has witnessed. Not just battles and patrols, but marriages, births, stargazing, stew-making, and probably someone trying to fry rice with snow. Life didn't stop just because it was happening on stone. As the sun lowers, you pass through a low gate that once controlled access between sectors. It's small, just wide enough for a cart. You imagine a guard here, half asleep, waving someone through with a yawn. No grand inspections, just a shrug and a grunt. Even empires need nap breaks. Tonight, you camp in the shadow of a particularly well-preserved tower. The bricks are tight, the stairs intact. You climb to the top as twilight settles in, and for a moment, the world turns sepia. The mountains are ink strokes, the trees whisper poetry, and the wall, with all its history and its quiet persistence, feels like it's humming beneath your feet. You wrap yourself in your blanket, nestle into your sleeping pad, and let the hum lull you toward dreams. Maybe tonight, you'll dream of Tang ghosts doing military line dancing under a full moon. One can hope, the next morning, the world wakes you with a whisper, just birdsong, a hint of smoke from someone's distant breakfast fire, and the slow warmth of sunrise stretching its fingers across the horizon. You blink the sleep from your eyes and remember, oh right, you're still on the wall. Today, you're entering a segment associated with the Song dynasty, and the difference is subtle, but there. These bricks are finer, lighter in color, and, if you sniff them closely enough, smell slightly of regret and ink. You pack up your gear, brush the moss off your boots, and get moving. The Song weren't known for military might, not in the dramatic, sword-flashing way of earlier dynasties. They were, however, very good at losing territories with dignity and inventing things while doing it. Paper money, movable type, and compass refinements. All Song era. What they lacked in brute force, they made up for in elegance, bureaucracy, and some of the finest tea culture in history. Still, the wall remained, patched, reinforced, and adapted in places, though not expanded with much zeal. The Song strategy leaned on diplomacy, tribute, and occasionally paying off nomadic tribes. You can practically hear a Song diplomat whispering, "Let's not fight. Let's trade poetry and call it even." As you walk, you notice a peculiar feature. This part of the wall has several alcoves carved into its side, not large enough for watch posts, more like shrines or niches. Inside one, you find the remains of incense sticks and a small carved tortoise. Local offerings, maybe, or silent prayers from centuries past. You offer a nod and a quiet, "Thanks for the shade." Not far ahead, the wall crosses a narrow river. Here, instead of stone, a wooden bridge once connected the structure across the water. It's gone now, just the rotting stumps remain, poking up like ruined teeth. You step carefully along a modern plank walkway. Below, fish dart through shadows, completely uninterested in dynastic borders. Historians still argue whether the song used the wall as an active defensive strategy or merely as a symbolic boundary. Some records suggest it served more as a postal and customs route than a war front. If true, it makes sense. The wall didn't need to be a fortress. It just needed to be present. A gentle reminder. Here be China. Along the way, you pass what remains of a Song garrison building. Most of it's collapsed, but one wall is still standing. Its surface covered in faint graffiti. You run your fingers across the etchings. Names, dates, a sketch of a horse that looks more like a turnip, and one inscription that reads, roughly, "Stuck here 3 months. Ate too much radish." You laugh. Some things never change. A merchant trail used to run parallel here, and for a moment, you imagine the clamor of pack animals, the smell of dried persimmons, and the occasional argument about tax receipts. It's oddly soothing, maybe because there's comfort in imagining the boring parts of history. The daily chores, the tea breaks, the long sighs of people just trying to get through a Tuesday. By noon, you crest a ridge and look down on a steep slope where the wall dips dramatically, snaking its way toward a valley. It's the kind of descent that makes your knees argue with your brain. Carefully, you begin the climb down, one slow step at a time, using the time to marvel at how much mortar it must have taken to glue this thing together. According to some estimates, if you lined up every brick used in the wall's construction end to end, they'd circle the earth. Twice. You wonder how many of those bricks were misplaced, misfired, or sneakily stolen to patch someone's chicken coop. Probably more than historians want to admit. Partway down the slope, you take a breather beside a milestone marker. Unlike earlier ones, this has clear song script and a faint diagram, something like a trade route map. The wall was part of an information superhighway in its time. Couriers galloped across these stones, carrying imperial orders, tax receipts, and letters from bored bureaucrats to even more bored generals. You pause to eat, a rice ball and some dried plums. The plums are tart, and you make a face. A bird stares at you with judgment. You eat another out of spite. As the sun leans westward, you reach the valley floor. There, you discover something peculiar. A broken section of the wall filled in with repurposed tiles, bamboo slats, and what looks suspiciously like recycled roof beams. Not exactly military-grade material. But then again, sometimes defense is just looking busy enough to deter trouble. There's a stream nearby, and you sit beside it, letting the cold water cool your hands. The sound is hypnotic. Water over stone, leaves rustling, wind brushing your sleeves. You close your eyes, let your shoulders drop, and breathe in the soft decay of the forest. Somewhere, not far, a woodpecker knocks out a gentle beat. It feels like history tapping out Morse code. You think about how the wall, for all its might, also had to accommodate the mundane. Supply wagons, vegetable gardens, laundries, blacksmith shops. Soldiers complained about soap shortages. Officers filed reports about shoe distribution. there's comfort in the paperwork. It means people were still just people. As twilight falls, you set up camp near the remnants of an old checkpoint. The gate is gone, but a stone platform remains. You spread your mat across it, surrounded by the ghosts of customs officers and bored night guards. One can almost hear the echo of a long yawn and the scratch of a quill writing, "No contraband detected." The stars come out slowly, like reluctant guests. You lie back, full of plums and trivia, and let the sky pull you gently towards sleep. Somewhere in your half-dream, a song scholar offers you tea and lectures you on Confucian taxes. You nod politely. Even your subconscious respects bureaucracy. You wake to the clang of hammers, echoing like distant church bells. Only these bells are made of steel, and the song they sing is, "Build higher, build thicker." Today, you're back under the Ming Dynasty's grand blueprint, where every ruler seems to have shouted, "More bricks, more walls," as if collecting wall real estate were a national sport. You trudge up the ramp to your section, where scaffolding hugs the stones like a second skeleton. The wall here is twice as thick as anything you've seen so far, wide enough to have carts pass side by side, or to hold an impromptu tavern if someone really wanted. Ming engineers believed that height and girth would never go out of style, and apparently, neither did labor quotas. Your assignment: help raise a new crenellation layer atop an existing parapet. That means hauling crates of precisely cut bricks up stepladder-style planks and passing them along a human chain. The bricks are uniform gray blocks stamped with the Emperor's seal. In theory, this prevented counterfeit bricks. In practice, it mostly prevented you from losing your lunch when someone threw a loose brick your way. As you step onto the narrow ledge, you tap a half-built Merlin gently with your mallet. Sounds nice. Solid. Very solid. This height, you think, would test even the most dedicated tightrope walker. It's also a perfect spot to practice your accidental mid-air yelps. During your lunch break, you perch on the edge of the wall and peel a boiled egg. A friend from the mortar crew tells you that Ming builders sometimes mixed rice husk ash into the mortar to improve insulation. A fringe recipe that's part magic, part kitchen experiment. You taste a crumb of it once, by mistake, and it's like eating a campfire, promising. Nearby, a group of masons debates the wall's exact thickness. 15 feet, one insists, waving a measuring rod. No, 18. We raised it last month. They argue like tailors fussing over seam allowances. Historians still argue whether the Ming actually measured consistently, or if each province just winged it. Doesn't feel wacky at the moment. You're too busy not falling off the side. Your hands are sticky with lime, but at least it's not rice porridge this time. The foreman, a portly man who smells faintly of soy sauce and ambition, nods approval. Keep it level. Emperor won't spot a crooked brick. Someone will, though. He points to a young apprentice whose brickwork is visibly slanted. The apprentice blushes, then corrects it. Grimly. You overhear an engineer discussing cantilevered overhangs to improve drainage, a surprisingly modern term. He's proud of the design, claims water will fall straight off instead of seeping into the wall. You file that under things you never thought about when you first heard Great Wall. After lunch, the wind picks up dust from the nearby Loess Plateau. It stings your eyes and fills your mouth with grit. You cough, dust burp, and adjust your goggles. A welcome, if tardy, gift from a forward-thinking overseer. Wearing them makes you look like a futuristic wall builder. You're both embarrassed, and secretly thrilled. Higher up, the battlements form a rhythmic skyline. Up, down, up, down, like a stone heartbeat. You wonder if Ming surveyors counted each crenel to match auspicious numerology. Some records suggest they believed the number of merlins could curry celestial favor. Others shrug and say it was just standard military design. Historians still debate the role of feng shui in battlement layout. Either way, it's fun to imagine geomancers consulting giant stone rulers over tea. You pause to admire your handiwork. A perfect row of merlins, each gap just wide enough for an archer's elbow. You tap one again for luck. It resonates with authority. You like the sound. You like the height. You almost forget your knees are trembling. Suddenly, a feathered hat emerges above the parapet. A mid-level inspector from the regional capital stands there, looking down his nose at your work. He's carrying a scroll. You brace for critique, but he simply announces, "Good. Continue." Then he departs without another word, leaving you to wonder if he's impressed or just in a hurry to get back to his tea. You trade jokes with your chainmates. If this wall had grown arms, it'd be doing push-ups by now. Laughter ripples along the ledge, and for a moment, the wall feels less like a monument and more like an inside joke everyone's in on. By mid-afternoon, they shift you to installing stone coping along the wall's top edge, a fancy word for protective capstones that keep rain from washing everything out from under you. Each copestone weighs enough to bench press a peasant. You hoist it up, align it, and settle it into place. You imagine the wall wearing these caps, like a crown of stone, an emperor's headpiece for a monument that never bows. As the sun begins to set, casting long orange shadows over your handiwork, you climb down the scaffold and stretch. Your back is stiff, your hands raw, and your heart oddly full. You helped make the wall just a little bit taller, a little bit stronger. Someone, someday, will lean against this new layer of bricks and maybe carve their name or whisper a story. That night, you sleep on a wide ledge where the new merlins will stand guard. The wind hums through the gaps, kind of like a lullaby. You drift off imagining the wall flexing with the strength of all those layers, dynamic, unbreakable, tireless. And somewhere in that stone symphony, you are one steady note, pressing into history. You wake to a soft breeze curling over the wall, lifting your blanket like a teasing child. The sunrise blushes gently across the brickwork, golden pink light sweeping along the parapets like a sleepy inspection. The wall stretches endlessly in both directions, fading into mist, like a giant stone dragon exhaling into the sky. Today, your task isn't just building, it's fortifying. Not just slapping bricks on top of bricks, but reinforcing what already exists. You and your crew are assigned to a section built nearly a century ago, during the early Ming expansion push. Time, weather, and the occasional curious goat have not been kind to it. Loose stones wobble under your feet. Weeds poke out between cracks like defiant green hairs on an old man's chin. You chip away mortar with a chisel and brush debris from the joints. The new mix you apply smells faintly of vinegar. It includes fermented glutinous rice paste, a surprisingly strong, ancient bonding agent. It's oddly sticky, almost like spreading dumpling filling into brick seams. You joke that the wall is being held together by breakfast. A fellow worker laughs, then promptly drops his trowel off the side. He doesn't laugh as hard after that. As you move along the battlements, you pass a series of beacon towers. These stubby, round watchtowers were designed to send smoke signals across provinces, something like ancient fax machines powered by wolf dung and pine wood. Lighting one correctly was a serious art. Too much smoke, and it looked like a wildfire. Too little, and the next tower might think you're just making lunch. Inside one beacon tower, you find a faded pictograph guide showing the smoke signal code. 1 puff meant bandits, 2 for troop movement, 3 for Mongol scouts, and 5 puffs meant, essentially, get everyone, yes, everyone, right now. Historians still argue whether local variations confused the system or whether most messages got through with enough creative guesswork. The tower has a worn staircase spiraling inside, and you climb it just for the view. From the top, you see why they picked this spot. The valleys below yawn like open hands, and the wall's path zigzags across ridgelines like a stitched scar on the land. The view is absurdly dramatic. You half expect a narrator to emerge from the clouds and say, "In a world where stone is destiny." Back on ground level, you join a different team working on drainage. Yes, drainage. Not exactly glamorous, but vital. Without channels to guide rainwater off and away, the wall might slowly rot from the inside. You're handed a spade and shown how to dig a diagonal trough between bricks, carving just enough slope to keep water moving, but not so much that it floods the guard posts. You nod seriously, as if you've trained your whole life for this trench. Someone mentions that in certain areas, builders buried ceramic pipes under the stonework for better drainage, kind of like ancient PVC. A few fragments still remain, and you're lucky enough to find one. A thin, grayish tube peeking out like the bone of a buried giant. You tap it gently, hollow, cool, still dry. Lunch today is a rice cake wrapped in lotus leaf. You chew slowly, watching a falcon ride the updrafts overhead. Below the wall, you spot a caravan making its way through the valley, tiny as ants. Silk, probably, or tea, maybe both. Trade routes passed this way often. The wall didn't just keep things out, it helped keep everything else moving along. Someone points out a faded inscription etched into a lower stone. Year of the Fire Horse, followed by a name. Maybe a mason's proud mark. Maybe just graffiti. No one knows. You run your fingers over the grooves and feel oddly connected, like time has been braided right into the brick. That afternoon, your group installs iron support bars into the sides of the wall. Retrofits meant to prevent slippage along steep inclines. They look like ancient braces, clamping the wall's jaw shut so it doesn't slouch. You think it gives the whole thing a stern, metallic grin. The work is steady, rhythmic. Scrape, apply, press. Scrape, apply, press. A soothing repetition like brushing an enormous set of teeth. Except instead of toothpaste, it's lime slurry, and instead of molars, it's 2-ton blocks. Toward dusk, the weather shifts. Thunder in the distance, then the smell of ozone. Your supervisor barks to finish the day's load before rain hits. Everyone hustles. Bricks are passed faster. Mortar is slapped with abandon. You secure the last coping stone just as the first drop hits your nose. The crew rushes into the beacon tower, sheltering beside stacks of dry wood and sandbags. Rain patters on the roof above, and the scent of damp stone rises all around you. The great wall sighs in the wet. You imagine it enjoying the cool, like a giant stretching after sunbathing too long. Someone pulls out a string instrument, 2 strings, 1 bowed, and begins playing a slow, creaky tune. The melody echoes softly between stone walls, mournful and tender, like the wall's own lullaby. You lean back, eyes closed, and let the rhythm of bricks and rain and memory carry you deeper into rest. The rain is still steady, the sound of it mixing with the soft hum of the bow's strings. It's strange how these ancient walls, built with sweat and grit, seem to carry the weight of centuries, holding on to all their stories. Every stone laid, every brick placed, has been touched by thousands of hands. Some left their marks, names, symbols, scribbles, inspired by both pride and necessity. You think of the workers who once climbed these very steps, breathing the same air as you, and it's almost like they're there beside you. You can almost hear their voices, lost in time, murmuring as they chipped away, brick by brick, knowing that their task would take far longer than any of them could imagine. By morning, the rain has softened to a mist, draping the wall in a ghostly veil. You awake, stiff and cold, from an uncomfortable sleep against the tower's stone. The roof has a certain echoing silence, like the air itself has paused to listen. There's something inherently calming about the wall after a storm. The stones now slick with rain, the air fresh and cool as though the earth is breathing a deep sigh. As you climb down to begin the day's work, the crew is already assembled. Today's task? A new section that needs to be made earthquake resistant. It's a surprising addition to the wall's defense, considering that earthquakes were never something that came to mind when thinking about the Great Wall's original purpose. Ancient engineers, far beyond their time, used a technique that would seem more fitting in modern construction. Some sections of the wall were designed to sway gently in the event of an earthquake, allowing the structure to absorb shock rather than break. They used interlocking brick patterns, placing stones at irregular angles to create flexibility, while also allowing the earth below to breathe with the rhythm of its tremors. It's strange to think about, but these early architects knew that stone walls, while strong, were no match for nature's raw power. Historians still argue whether it was only the Mongols or other invaders that kept the builders occupied, or if nature's unpredictable forces were ever a greater threat to the wall's integrity. As you work, you learn more about the internal complexity of the wall. You start to see its layers. The more you dig, the more you understand how it was constantly evolving. It's not just a simple fortress, but a living, breathing part of history, with intricate designs and modifications that continue to hold up even now. A few hours later, the crew breaks for lunch. You gather around a small fire, hands wrapped around your clay bowl of warm porridge, steam rising into the cool morning air. The smell of boiled grains fills the space, grounding you in the simplicity of the moment. It's a far cry from the sprawling city life outside these walls, but in some strange way, it feels like everything is perfectly balanced here. The scene is almost idyllic, with the rolling hills in the distance, the great wall stretching out below you, and the sound of wind whistling through the stones like an ancient lullaby. It's easy to forget the chaos and history that has unfolded in this very place. The wars, the invasions, the constant battle between humanity and the forces that seem determined to push us back into the earth. And yet, here you are, just one of thousands who've contributed to this monumental feat of engineering, spending your days layering history upon history with each brick and every drop of sweat. Later, as dusk begins to settle over the mountains, the crew assembles again to add the final touches to your section. The last bricks are placed with care, the mortar smoothed, and the parapets checked for sturdiness. As you step back to inspect your work, the sunset bathes everything in a warm, orange glow. The entire wall seems to glow under the fading light, like a massive serpent winding through the landscape. The air is cool and the wind picks up, causing the stones to hum. It's an odd sensation, but you feel connected to the past, as if the wall itself is acknowledging your contribution, its own silent way of thanking you for reinforcing its strength once again. You wonder how many people, generations after you, will stand here and gaze at your handiwork, feeling the same strange connection to history. You'll never know, of course, but the thought settles over you like the evening mist. And with that, the day comes to an end. The fire flickers, the stars begin to peek through the heavens, and you settle into a quiet rhythm, knowing that the wall will continue on, stone by stone, for many years to come. As you close your eyes, the soft murmurs of your fellow workers and the hum of the ancient stones sing you into a deep, peaceful sleep. You wake early to the crisp, fresh air that only comes after a cold night. The sun hasn't quite touched the horizon yet, but you can feel its warmth stretching, gently promising the arrival of another day. The stones under your feet are cool, damp from the mist, and as you stretch, you take in the stillness of the morning. It's a quiet kind of magic here, where the wall meets the land, and history holds its breath. Today's task isn't as glamorous as placing the last brick or reinforcing sections. Today, it's all about maintenance, repairs that often go unnoticed, but are vital to keeping the wall's integrity intact. Your crew is tasked with patching cracks in the parapets, filling small gaps, and repairing the aged watchtowers. It's a job that doesn't get the glory of new construction, but it's just as important. After all, this wall has stood for centuries, and even the strongest structures need constant care to survive the ravages of time. The tower you're working on today has seen better days. Its once sturdy stone frame is chipped, weathered by storms, and its windows cracked, barely holding together. It's a reminder that, for all its grandeur, the wall was never invincible. Time and nature always take their toll. As you begin scraping away at the loose mortar, you can't help but think of all the workers who've come before you. Over the centuries, millions of people have contributed to this monumental task. Some worked as part of massive state-organized efforts, while others, like the early dynastic laborers, were conscripted against their will. Historians still argue over how many lives were lost during the construction, whether it was tens of thousands or hundreds of thousands. But one thing is certain: no one built this alone. The sound of scraping tools and the occasional shout from another worker is the only noise that accompanies the steady rhythm of your hands. You find yourself lost in the task, in the strange, quiet beauty of it all. In the fading light of dusk, you're just a small part of something enormous, something that stretches as far as the eye can see. As the day wears on, you take a break to examine some of the ancient materials still used on the wall. You find that the bricks you're working with today are slightly different from those used in the sections you've built before. These are much older, their surface weathered and rough. A closer inspection reveals an odd but fascinating detail. These bricks are made with a unique clay mixture that comes from a remote valley several days' journey away. Legend has it that the local tribes, who were once responsible for supplying these rare bricks, would travel long distances to bring them to the Great Wall, knowing that the material was essential for the wall's strength and durability. The clay they used was uniquely resistant to cracking under the harsh winter cold and sweltering summer heat. Some historians believe the secret of this particular blend of clay was lost over time, and attempts to replicate it in modern times have never quite matched the original formula. It's a curious mystery, one of those historical oddities that seems both trivial and monumental at the same time. Your crew leader points out an important detail, a small section of wall near the tower where several bricks are nearly disintegrating. These bricks were likely replaced numerous times over the centuries, but the damage is finally too much to ignore. Your task is clear. Help rebuild this section using the most durable materials you can find. The wall isn't just about staying strong against invaders. It's also about standing up to the passage of time. You've heard stories of some sections of the wall that have completely disappeared over the years, parts of it buried by shifting sands, submerged under floodwaters, or simply worn away by erosion. It's a humbling thought. The wall, though a symbol of might and power, is still vulnerable to forces far beyond human control. In some places, all that remains are a few fragmented stones, a shadow of what was once an imposing, impenetrable fortress. After a hard day's work, the evening brings the familiar comfort of shared meals. The camaraderie among the crew is easy and natural. Despite the physical toll, there's a quiet joy in knowing that you've contributed to something that will outlast you. The soup today is rich with flavors: simmered chicken, ginger, and a hint of soy sauce, a welcome warmth after hours in the cool air of the wall. As you eat, you look out over the landscape. The Great Wall snakes across the horizon like a serpent, winding through valleys, crossing mountains, and disappearing into the mist. The sight of it, with its stones darkened by the setting sun, fills you with a sense of wonder. How could something so monumental have been built by hand, brick by brick, over the course of thousands of years? The sheer effort, the ambition, it's almost impossible to comprehend. You finish your meal in silence, watching as the first stars begin to twinkle above. The sounds of the night are soft and soothing, the wind rustling through the trees, the distant calls of nocturnal animals. As you head to bed, the air feels cooler, the stars brighter. The Great Wall stands there, unmoving, timeless, a silent witness to all that has passed and all that is yet to come. Morning comes slowly. The sun stretches its golden rays over the hills, casting a soft glow across the stonework of the Great Wall. The air is fresh, crisp, almost invigorating. You can feel it on your skin as you step out, ready for another day. The first birds are already awake, their calls echoing across the vastness, filling the air with a quiet melody. Today's task is less about construction and more about surveying, ensuring the wall's defenses are intact, especially in the parts where erosion and the elements have caused the most wear. You walk along the edge of the wall, your footsteps steady on the centuries-old stones. The landscape around you is still, with only the rustling of the wind and the occasional chirp of a bird breaking the silence. The view from the wall is breathtaking. The mountains roll on forever, their peaks covered in mist, while the flat valleys below stretch far into the distance. It's as if the world itself is holding its breath. The task feels peaceful, almost meditative. You move from one section to another, inspecting each carefully, making notes on where repairs are needed. The work is surprisingly calming. Each stone is like a page of history, and your job is to make sure that this page remains intact. As you move along, the feeling of being a small part of something enormous settles over you. You begin to realize that the Great Wall isn't just a physical structure. It's an idea, a symbol of the persistence of human effort. There's a part of the wall you've been meaning to visit, a stretch of it that has remained somewhat mysterious. It's a section that's been largely left alone, untouched by the hands of the modern workers. You approach it cautiously, the stones underfoot slippery with morning dew. The wall here feels different, older somehow. You can sense it in the air, a faint pulse of something ancient. Historians still argue whether this stretch of the wall was originally part of the original Qin Dynasty construction, or if it was built later, during the Ming Dynasty. No one knows for sure, but there are whispers that it was built by a particularly secretive group of engineers whose methods and designs were so innovative that they were kept hidden from the rest of the workers. As you stand there, you feel a shiver run down your spine. The wall here feels more alive, as if it holds secrets that no one has fully uncovered. You gently trace your fingers along the stone, feeling its cool surface, the rough texture beneath your skin. There are small carvings here, barely visible, ancient symbols, half erased by time. Some believe these symbols were part of an early attempt at communication between the different factions that built the wall. They were a way of marking territory, of establishing boundaries within the larger structure. You can almost hear the faint echo of voices from centuries past. Workers huddled together, carving out their marks on the wall, as if trying to make sure they weren't forgotten. It's a humbling thought. How many lives were lost? How many hands worked tirelessly, all to protect an empire from the threats of the world outside? After a moment, you continue on your way, the peaceful rhythm of the wall's construction surrounding you once again. The day passes quietly, and as the sun sets, the stars begin to twinkle above. The night feels colder now, the wind picking up as the temperature drops. As you sit by the fire that evening, wrapped in your heavy coat, you reflect on what you've learned about the wall today. The more you work on it, the more you realize that it's not just about the wall itself. It's about the people who built it, the lives they led, and the world they left behind. This wall is a testament to their resilience, their determination, and their ability to adapt to the challenges that faced them. You gaze up at the night sky, the constellations flickering above like distant lights guiding you through time. You feel connected to the past, to those who have walked this same path before you. It's as if the Great Wall itself is a bridge stretching across time, linking you to those who came long before. As the fire burns low, you feel your eyes growing heavy, the rhythm of the day settling into a peaceful, lulling cadence. The wind outside rustles through the trees, the faint sound of the wall's stones creaking in the distance. It's a soothing sound, the kind of sound that makes you feel safe, as if nothing in the world could touch you here, in this quiet place, where the Great Wall stands watch. The morning sun rises over the horizon, casting long shadows along the Great Wall. It's another cool morning, the kind that fills the air with a refreshing crispness. As you stretch and begin your day, The routine settles in, a peaceful rhythm of work and reflection. You feel a sense of calm here on the wall, as if the weight of the world has been left behind. This place, this ancient construction, has become a part of you. You've been here long enough now that you start to feel as though you belong to the wall just as much as it belongs to you. Today, you're assigned to assist a group of workers who are focusing on one of the more remote sections of the wall, one that isn't as frequently visited by other teams. It's a spot that has always intrigued you, partly because of its isolation, and partly because of the myths surrounding it. The section seems almost forgotten, tucked away in the midst of dense forests and craggy hills. Yet it holds a certain charm. There's a quiet serenity here, as if the wall itself has become a part of the landscape. As you arrive, you're struck by how overgrown this particular stretch is. Vines and moss cling to the stones, making it appear almost as if the wall is slowly being reclaimed by nature. The sight of it is mesmerizing. You can almost hear the whispers of the workers who labored here centuries ago, their presence still lingering in the air. Historians still argue whether this part of the wall was ever finished, with some claiming that it was left incomplete due to unforeseen circumstances, while others believe it was meant to be a symbolic representation rather than a fully functional fortification. This section of the wall feels almost like a time capsule. The stones here are worn, their edges smoothed by centuries of exposure to the elements. There's a sense of quiet strength in this place, something resilient, something that has withstood the passage of time and weathered the storms of history. It's both beautiful and humbling. The wall, after all, was never just about protection. It was a living entity, evolving alongside the empire it served. You take a deep breath, inhaling the cool, earthy scent of the surrounding forest. The air is thick with the scent of pine and damp earth, the kind of fragrance that lingers long after you've left. You begin working with your team, carefully clearing away the overgrowth and checking the stones for any signs of damage. The task is simple, but it's oddly satisfying. Each stone you examine feels like a piece of history, something tangible that connects you to the past. As you work, you can't help but think about how many others have done this before you. How many hands have touched these same stones, all in the name of preserving something greater than themselves. During a brief pause, you take a moment to reflect. The Great Wall is, in many ways, a reflection of the Chinese people's resilience. Over centuries, it has been rebuilt, repaired, and reinforced, never fully collapsing despite the forces that have acted upon it. It survived wars, invasions, and natural disasters, standing tall as a monument to human perseverance. And yet, despite all its strength, there's something deeply fragile about it. Its survival depends not just on the physical bricks and mortar, but on the dedication of those who tend to it, who care for it, who ensure that it endures. This sense of responsibility is shared by all who work here. Every person you meet on the wall seems to understand the significance of what they're doing, no matter how small their task might seem. Whether it's fixing a crack in a stone or clearing away debris, everyone has a role to play in maintaining the integrity of this ancient structure. The wall is more than just a defensive barrier. It's a symbol of collective effort, of people coming together to preserve something vital. As the day continues, the work moves steadily forward. The vines are cleared away, revealing the stone beneath, and small repairs are made where necessary. With each passing hour, the section becomes a little more like its former self, a little closer to its original state. It's a slow process, but there's something satisfying about it. The knowledge that, with each effort, the wall is being preserved for the future. By the time evening falls, the sky is painted in soft hues of pink and orange, the fading light casting long shadows across the stone. The forest around you is quiet, save for the occasional rustle of leaves in the wind. It's a peaceful end to the day, and as you sit by the fire, the warmth of the flames seems to carry away the fatigue of the day's labor. The stars are bright tonight, more than usual, and you find yourself gazing up at them, lost in thought. There's something timeless about the night sky, something that has remained unchanged for centuries. Just like the Great Wall, the stars above are constant, always there, always watching. They've witnessed all that has come before, and they will continue to watch as history unfolds. As you drift off to sleep that night, the quiet hum of the wind and the distant sounds of the night creatures are a lullaby in themselves. The wall stands firm, its stones cool beneath the blanket of night, and you, like the wall, remain a part of something much larger than yourself. You feel the deep connection, the comforting knowledge that in the vast tapestry of time, you are a small but vital thread. The first light of dawn sneaks in through the cracks of your shelter, gently waking you from a peaceful sleep. There's something serene about the way the sun rises over the horizon, as though it's the world's way of reminding you that there's always another day ahead, a new chance to contribute to something greater. You stretch, yawning, and feel the cool morning air settle around you. It's the kind of morning that makes you feel at ease, at peace with the world. Today, your task is more of a maintenance one. The section you're assigned to is one of the oldest parts of the wall, and you're tasked with helping reinforce the stonework. This is not just about repairs, it's about safeguarding the history, ensuring that future generations will still stand here and look upon the same stones, feel the same connection to the past. There's a deep sense of purpose in that. As you walk along the wall, your footsteps echo lightly in the quiet morning. The stones beneath you feel solid, cool to the touch, as if they've absorbed the cold night air and are slowly releasing it to the warmth of the sun. The view before you is magnificent, the mountains rolling off in the distance, the mist hanging low in the valleys, almost as if the world is still waking up. You can hear the gentle rustling of leaves in the breeze, a soothing sound that accompanies your every movement. There's something almost spiritual about being here, working on this ancient structure that stood for centuries. You know that it's not just the physical labor that keeps it intact. It's the dedication of the people who've come before you, the long line of workers, soldiers, and caretakers who've given their lives to ensure that the wall would stand the test of time. As you continue along the stretch, you can't help but feel a deep respect for them. They've left their mark here, and you, in turn, are leaving yours. The work is slow but rewarding. The stones are heavy, and the mortar is thick, but you're careful to ensure that each piece fits perfectly into place. You can't rush it. There's no need to. The wall has stood for thousands of years, and it's not going anywhere anytime soon. The task before you is simply one of continuity. It's about making sure that this piece of history doesn't fade away, doesn't become forgotten. As you work, The hours pass quietly. You find yourself becoming lost in the rhythm of the task. The steady sound of your hands against the stones. The feeling of each stone fitting neatly into place. There's something meditative about it. The outside world feels far away here, as if time itself has slowed down, or perhaps even stopped. It's just you, the wall, and the endless expanse of the landscape that stretches out before you. You take a moment to look around, to appreciate the enormity of what you're a part of. The Great Wall stretches for miles, winding over hills and through valleys, twisting and turning through the landscape as if it's a living, breathing entity. You can see how much effort, how much blood, sweat, and tears went into creating this structure. The wall is not just a physical barrier. It's a symbol of something much greater, of an empire's reach, of its power, of its ability to protect what it holds dear. The wind picks up, the sound of it whipping through the stones, creating a low, haunting hum. It's a sound that seems to echo through time, as if the wall itself is calling out to those who've come before and those who will come after. Historians still argue about whether the wall was originally meant to be as imposing as it is today, or if it was built more out of necessity, an answer to the threat posed by nomadic tribes and invaders from the north. But as you stand here, you can't help but think that it was always meant to be this way. It was always meant to be a fortress, a bastion of strength, a reminder that human beings will do whatever it takes to survive. As the day draws to a close, the sun starts to dip below the horizon, painting the sky with warm shades of orange and pink. The air grows cooler, and the stars begin to twinkle overhead. The quiet hum of the wind through the stones seems to grow softer, gentler as the night approaches. It's almost as if the wall is settling in for the night, ready to rest and gather strength for the day ahead. You sit by the fire that evening, wrapped in your thick coat, feeling the warmth of the flames as they flicker and dance in the cool night air. The work is done for the day, and you allow yourself a moment to relax, to reflect on everything you've seen and done today. The wall has been your focus, but it's more than just an object of stone. It's a reminder of everything that came before and everything that will come after. It's a part of you now, a part of history that you've helped preserve. As you lie down to sleep, the fire crackles softly in the distance. The stars above are clearer tonight, their light flickering like tiny lanterns in the vast, dark sky. The Great Wall, ever watchful, stands firm and silent in the distance, a silent guardian of the land. And as you drift off to sleep, you know that it will continue to stand, long after you've gone, just as it always has. As the stars begin to twinkle overhead, a kind of stillness settles in. The once active camp now hums with soft, muted conversations, some about the day's work, others about home, the lives left behind. The firelight flickers in the faces of those around you, and for a moment you feel as though the vastness of the wall is somehow shrinking, becoming more personal, more intimate. It's no longer just a colossal structure stretching across the land. It's become part of you, part of everyone here. You take a deep breath, the air cool and fresh, scented with pine and earth. You close your eyes, letting the sounds of the night surround you. The chirping of crickets, the occasional whisper of wind, and the soft murmur of distant voices. The weariness of the day begins to melt away, replaced by a quiet sense of peace. The work will start again tomorrow, but for now, there's a rare moment of stillness, a brief reprieve from the endless construction. The wall itself seems to breathe, almost alive in the darkness. Its stones, worn by time and weather, glow faintly in the moonlight. It feels as though it's telling you a secret, one that only those who have worked so long on its creation can understand. It's a secret of persistence, of endurance, of quiet strength. It's a reminder that, while the wall may stand for centuries, it is also built on the countless, nameless hands that have touched it. Historians have long marveled at the wall's ability to endure, standing through centuries of war, decay, and history's unrelenting march forward. Some say it's a miracle that it has survived as long as it has, considering the sheer scale of its construction and the vast number of hands required to build it. Others argue that its enduring nature speaks to something more profound, a symbol of the unyielding human spirit, the drive to create something that transcends time. As you sit by the fire, listening to the murmurs of your fellow workers, you feel a deep sense of gratitude, not for the wall itself necessarily, but for the quiet solidarity shared among those who build it. Despite the hardships, the toil, and the endless days of labor, there is a bond that ties you all together. You are all part of something larger, something that will endure long after this camp is forgotten, long after your own name is lost to history. The stars above seem to shine a little brighter tonight, casting their soft light over the work that will never truly be done. Tomorrow, you will wake up, gather your tools, and continue the work, just as your predecessors have done for generations. It's a cycle that stretches far back in time and will continue long into the future. The wall is not just a physical structure. It's a thread that ties you to those who came before and those who will come after. It's a reminder that time moves forward, but the wall remains, an ever-present symbol of perseverance. Slowly, your thoughts begin to drift. The crackling fire, the gentle hum of the camp, and the soft breeze all create a lullaby of sorts, a peaceful melody that draws you into a deep, restful sleep. You let go of the weight of the day, allowing the quiet of the night to wash over you. The wall, ever looming and eternal, watches over you, a silent sentinel in the dark. And as the fire burns low, and the last embers fade into the night, you drift off, knowing that when the morning comes, the wall will still be there, waiting for the next day's labor, the next brick in its endless journey toward completion. End of story. Sweet dreams.